Yes, there is no doubt in my mind that Grow a Garden, the largest game not just on Roblox but also of all time, uses AI art completely shamelessly. This is a fact that, although many players fail to notice at first glance, becomes glaringly obvious the more you dig into the game's quote-unquote art style. Here, let's take a look at this thumbnail for example. This could have been seen during one of the game's previous updates, and although it has since been removed, it's probably the most obvious example of AI-generated content inside of the game. In it, a player can be seen standing next to a sunflower, one of the more sought-after plants inside of the game. However, by just comparing the sunflower's in-game model with its depiction on this thumbnail, we can very easily tell the thumbnail was AI-generated. The center of the sunflower in-game has multiple distinct layers, whereas in this thumbnail, the entire center is all merged and blended together. Even the stud texture is all merged together, and in some cases it just fully disappears. There is no way this thing was made by a real person, especially considering how different it is from the actual sunflower in-game. And what's worse is that this isn't the only example of AI art in this game. Here is probably one of the most well-known thumbnails on the game's page, showing a player standing in front of a giant pepper, one of the most iconic crops in Grow a Garden. Although it may be a little hard to tell at first glance, this image is also AI-generated. For one, the pepper's stem in the thumbnail has this weird curve to it, which isn't present at all in the in-game version, and on top of that, the stud texture just fully disappears on the bottom half of the crop. It doesn't even look like the in-game version at all, and the very clear inconsistencies make it obvious that a human did not make this image. Another example of an AI-generated thumbnail would be this one depicting a player growing some massive strawberries. If we take a look at the top of the strawberry plants, we can see that just some random leaves are floating in the air, as well as some just in the middle of the strawberries themselves. What human would make this? The line of strawberry plants also just for some reason moves down a little towards the back of the image, which makes no sense as there's absolutely no reason to break up the line consistency, unless the image was made by a robot, of course. Thumbnails aren't the only use of AI though, as it's actually present inside of the game as well. Now, it's no secret that Grow a Garden is an extremely low-quality game. Literally no effort was put into this game's art direction, and that shows with the item renders. Now, for those who don't know, a render is a 2D depiction of a 3D object. For example, in the seed shop, those images of each cropped seed and fully grown plant form are what are professionally known as renders. And as you probably can tell, they're just poorly cropped screenshots from in-game. There was no effort into adding decent lighting or anything like that. They just took an image of each item's model, cropped out the background, and put the resulting image as the render in the seed shop. Obviously, no time or care was put into the game's renders, so you'd imagine my shock when I saw this. Yeah, that's right, in Grow a Garden's Robux shop, and only here, there lies what appears to be actually decent renders. Now, something you should know about me personally is that I am a decently professional render maker. I've made several high-quality renders for things outside of Grow a Garden, such as Doors, which is a popular horror game, so I definitely know what I'm talking about here. Needless to say, I was genuinely blown away by these renders in the Grow a Garden Robux shop. The lighting just seems to work really well with the horribly textured models. It all looks so nice, maybe even a little too nice. Yes, seeing how this game is notoriously low quality, I was skeptical that for some reason this one aspect is very high quality, especially since all the other renders in the game outside of this shop are just cropped screenshots with no effort put into them. So I did a little digging, and unfortunately I believe these may be AI as well. Now, unlike the thumbnails, I'm not 100% sure if these renders are AI, but I did notice some inconsistencies that may point towards that conclusion. For one, take a look at the render for this cantaloupe. On the surface facing towards the camera, the shine of the protruding part of the model just cuts right through one of the squares from the stud texture. That just seems like something very odd for lighting to do on an actual human-made render, so that may hint towards this being generated by AI. However, I will give these renders the benefit of the doubt, and that is due to a variety of reasons. For one, all of these renders seem to be relatively consistent in terms of lighting and shading, as if they were all made by the same person. There also doesn't appear to be too many random inconsistencies, at least not as many as seen with the AI thumbnails, so I see this as being much more likely to be made by an actual render maker than a robot. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they were made by AI given the track record this game has so far. Still, let me know in the comments what you think. Are these renders made by an actual person? Because if so, I am thoroughly impressed. But if it isn't, then I'll retract that statement. Either way, if these renders aren't made by AI, it doesn't get rid of the fact that AI was definitely used elsewhere in the game, which really is a massive disappointment, as you'd think with the millions upon millions of dollars this game has made, that some money could be spent to hire actual artists. However, this does raise one question. That being, why is Grow a Garden putting so little effort into their art direction, but quite a bit into the animation department? As I've said, Grow a Garden is complete garbage in terms of visuals, but I was actually quite impressed with the animation quality. Certain characters, most notably pets, have a decent amount of effort put into their animations, and they generally look very smooth, which was something I was definitely not expecting. The game also has a bunch of cutscenes that play every so often during developer events, and those are also pretty smoothly animated. I am thoroughly impressed at whoever did the animations for this game, they rock. But as I've said, this does leave one question. Why is there genuine love and care for the animation of this game but not the visual appeal? Why do they resort to using AI-generated content instead of getting actual artists? Well, I do have one theory, and that's that the reason is probably because Grow a Garden doesn't necessarily need to have a good visual appeal. This game is very iconic for its very bare-bones and low-quality style, and I think that largely contributes to the lack of care for how it looks. Why would the developers spend all this time and money making the game look pretty if it is known for looking the bare minimum? Players don't really care if the images in-game or renders were extremely low effort, like how they are in the Seed Shop, or just entirely generated by AI, such as in the thumbnails, as the game is completely built on not looking high quality. In fact, I've barely seen anyone talk about this game's usage of AI-generated content, which is a large reason why I'm making this video, as I think more people should know what type of material is found in Grow a Garden. This truly is a shame though, as I feel it would be really interesting to see this low-quality game in a high-quality art style, as that would provide a very unique contrast seen with the Roblox shop renders, which may or may not be AI. I don't know, I just wish more effort was put into this game's art direction, as using AI art is just scraping the bottom of the barrel in my opinion. So, to answer the question in this video's title, does Grow a Garden use AI art? Is it really a question? I mean, come on, of course it does. It's not even trying to be hidden. You just look at the game's thumbnail and it's just sitting right there. This, in my honest opinion, is very disappointing, but this game is so massive and successful, I highly doubt the developers would even care to use actual artists. Which does suck, as I think it would be very cool if the amount of love and care put into the animation quality of this game was also put into the art direction as well. Who knows, maybe in a future update they'll completely overhaul at least all the 2D assets of the game to have proper lighting and shading. But until then, I guess we're stuck with whatever this AI slop is. Anyways, with all of that being said, let me know in the comments what you think of this whole ordeal, as well as if you think the Roblox shop renders are AI or not, as I really hope these aren't AI, as they genuinely look very good, but if it's not made by a human then that just kinda ruins everything. So, thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.